So last week, I was at PTP and Russell filled in for me, and he did a good job. I listened to it on the way home, and I thought he did a good job. And he asked if he could teach today, and I said no. And now he's not here this morning, so maybe I need to call him or something. No, I'm teasing. But there is a reason why. Today is our last class in this quarter. Next month in September, all of our guest speakers will come and they'll teach the class and then they'll preach. So we'll pick up in Proverbs in October from chapter 13. Then we'll work through chapter 13 through the end of the book. And we'll have Sunday and Wednesday so we can, we'll have, I hesitate to say this, I think we'll have plenty of time to study 13 through the end of the book. And we'll do the best we can. So today, let's look at chapter 12, and we'll read it and we'll think about the verses. And I know that Russell didn't get all the way through chapter 11. I think he got maybe to verses 10 or 11, something like that. There's a couple of thoughts in chapter 11 that we'll conclude, and then we'll jump into chapter 12. Should have had my Bible open to Proverbs already. So Proverbs chapter 11, it's continuing the thought that we've picked up in the good versus wicked, the righteous versus the sinful, and that's what verses 11 and 12. Chapters 11 and 12 are teaching us. But look in verse 11 at the end of it. Verse 25. The generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered himself. The people will curse him who withholds grain, but blessings will be on the head of him who seals it. Basically, it's teaching us not to be selfish or not to be greedy, to think about someone else, to be that servant. And Solomon's saying, the blessing is actually if you have what you need and you have extra, give it away. Is that not the same concept that we see in the whole New Testament from Matthew to Revelation? Jesus talks about it a lot, being loving. How do you love someone? Solomon's teaching how to love someone. Give them what you have. Take care of them. Don't hold it for yourself. Chapter 11, in my opinion, that's kind of the conclusion. I know it's not the last verse, but that's kind of the conclusion of what chapter 11 was trying to teach us. Is, look for the opportunity to do good. Look for the opportunity, maybe sacrifice a little bit. How would we sacrifice a little bit, or how would we do that? Well, look at the verse again. It says, the generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will also be watered himself. But the people will curse him who withholds grain. That's the opportunity is what we have to look for. So that's kind of chapter 11. Do you have any questions or comments on chapter 11? And if not, we'll just read chapter 12 and we'll go through there. Okay, chapter 12, verse 1. Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge, but he who hates correction is stupid. A good man obtains favor from the Lord. A man of wicked intentions he will condemn. A man is not established by wickedness, but the root of the righteousness cannot be moved. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who causes shame is like rottenness to the bones. The thoughts of the righteous are right. but the counsels of the wicked are deceitful. The words of the wicked are lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright will deliver them. The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand. A man will be commended according to his wisdom, but he who is a perverse heart will be despised. Better is the one who is slighted but has a servant than he who honors himself but lacks bread. A righteous man regards the life of his animal, but the tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. He who tills his land will be satisfied with the bread, but he who follows frivolity, is devoured of understanding, withheld of understanding. The wicked covenant, the catch of evil men, but the root of the righteous yields fruit. The wicked is ensnared by the transgression of his lips, but the righteous will come through trouble. A man will be satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the recompense of a man's hands will be rendered to him. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. A fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers shame. He who speaks truth declares righteousness, but a false witness deceit. There is one who speaks like piercing of a sword, but the tongue of the wise promotes health. The truthful lip shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but counselors of peace have joy. No grave trouble will overtake the righteous, but the wicked shall be filled with evil. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal truthfully are his delight. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of the fools proclaims foolishness. The hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy man will put to forced labor. Anxiety in the heart of a man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad. The righteous should choose his friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is man's precious possession. In the way of righteous is life, and its pathway there is no death. So in chapter 12, there's a lot of attributes that Solomon is teaching. Peace, joy, health. He's teaching that you can choose certain things, right? And he's given everyday application to the people that was listening to his voice. And I think he's given us application for us today by some of these words. You know, we've done it before, but I think if we look at chapter 12 and look at the very last verse, it'll help us understand the whole chapter. 28, in the way of the righteous is life, and in its pathway there is no death. In the way of righteous. What's in the way? What does that mean? In the way of righteous. I'm sorry? In the path. He said in the path. You know, we drive automobiles and we drive in a lane, right? And if the lane's clear, it's in the path, you know. What happens if something gets in the way? Sometimes you don't have a choice. I get it. But if we have time, we move it out of the way, right? That's what he's teaching. He said, get the righteousness, keep it in the pathway, but if you see the sinful or you see the wicked, get it out. Get it out of your life. That's simple, isn't it? That's plain talk. That's what Solomon is teaching. Just go in the pathway of righteous and everything else, get it out of the way. How easy is that? Is it easy? I think it gets easier as you study God's Word. It gets easier as you put the things in your heart. It gets easier with the instruction. You remember Proverbs 1 verse 7 talks about the wicked doesn't want instruction, but the wise, basically the language is craves instruction. Again, Solomon's saying, here's the righteous in the pathway. You've got to be able to do this. So I think it shows some growth too, right? So look at verse 1. Whoever loves instruction loves knowledge. Do you love instruction? When we were a kid, we probably didn't enjoy instruction, did we? Do you enjoy instruction, Maddie? Not when it turns into punishment. Dennis said, we don't like instruction when it turns into punishment. That's right. But what is Solomon teaching? If we're wise, we're going to want that instruction. We're going to listen to it, right? And then the King James, the New King James, the American Standard of 1901, and the ESV all renders the next statement the same way. And it was interesting because the last word in chapter 1, verse 1 is stupid. How many times in your life have you said, don't use that word, or how many times have you heard, don't say that, or we don't say that? We don't use that word, right? Why don't we use that word? What does it entail? But he who hates correction is stupid. What is stupid? It just struck me interesting that he used that word. In the original Hebrew, it is bara. And it basically is a word that they used for something that was under the cattle's feet. Something brutish, if you will. Brutish and stupid are basically the same thing. So is there a difference between ignorance and stupid? Yes. What's ignorance? Unlearned. Gabe said unlearned. That's right. So what is stupid? Or what is the Hebrew translation to trod under the cattle's feet? I think you're exactly right, Jerry. Jerry said that stupid is a lack of, say it one more time, judgment, discernment, good judgment, he said. That's right. That the lack of maybe even concern, maybe the lack of, I just don't want to do it. I'm going to choose wicked instead of righteous. To me, that's strong language. When Solomon says, it is bara, I'm going to put it under the cattle's feet. What would we put under the cattle's feet? The ground, and they tear it up, right? There's several references about swine, even in chapter 11, they talked about the ring of the swine's snout. If you put fine gold in the snout of a swine, what happens? I guarantee you've lost your money. It's a waste. That's the same process, the same thought process here in what Solomon is saying. I think it's important that gives us a foundation that we can choose good versus wicked. And stupid is being the lack of good judgment. I used to work with a guy, and I've seen it a lot. And he had a sign on his desk that said, "Can't fix stupid." I always thought that was kind of interesting. Because I kind of thought it was a joke at first. I just can't. And he's very smart. He was our IT guy. He was, very interesting. Ex-military, worked on some planes. He was a mechanic that worked on some high-dollar, high-sophisticated equipment. And on his desk, "You can't fix stupid." And I finally asked him what it meant. I said, "What does that sign mean?" I said, "I think it's funny. I kind of get it in our everyday walk of life." And he pretty much said what Jerry said. He said, "I can't fix something when they won't decide to make it right." Lack of effort. Any questions, comments? A good man obtains favor from the Lord, but a man of wicked intentions he will condemn. Again, to me it's important to think about the intentions. What's a lie? What is a lie? Is it not a statement to intentionally deceit? It's not a lie to say something that's incorrect, right? You just didn't know. So if you deceit, your intentions are what? I want it to be my way. I want this to happen, and I'm going to lie in order for that to happen, right? That's what Solomon is saying right here in verse 2. A man of wicked intentions. Do we intend to go to heaven? Do we intend to come to worship? Do we intend to study our Bibles? I think we do. I think we absolutely have to have a dedication, and we have to have a thought process of, it's intentional for me. It is intentional that I study more. It is intentional that I learn more. Thank you. She said, "It ain't going to happen if you don't." That's exactly right. So you have a concept of throwing something under the cattle. The Hebrew word is stupid, and now he's saying your wicked intentions. How can somebody say that being a Christian is not intentional? I don't get it. It ain't going to happen if you don't. That's the quote of the day. I like that. Any other comments on this? Look at verse 5. The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceitful. To me, that's a little bit of a contradiction. Because I want to think that I would like to be wise to get counsel. Is that correct? So what is he teaching? What's God teaching us here in this verse? The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceitful. Could it be that the wicked, the counsel, he goes till he finds the answer that he wants to hear, not necessarily the truth? Is that fair? Because once we are wise and we have the knowledge and we start applying that knowledge, the thoughts are righteous, right? But if our thoughts are not righteous, we're going to try to find people that agree with us. Did I miss it there? Isn't that what it's talking about? Verse 7. The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand. Explain that to me. Wicked's going to be no more, but the house of the righteous will stand. What are we talking about? Yes, sir.
It's referencing like a fad. Everyone goes through, like, gotta have this, or gotta have that. Well, there's going to be some people say no. And while others go through these different fads of wanting this, wanting that, life is going to be far better off.
That's a good point. Victor said that to him it's like a fad. That's something that comes and something that goes. Something that people choose to do, the new and the greatest thing. And it's like, I don't need that. I'm gonna stay strong to the foundation, and it don't go away. It doesn't fade away. I think that's a good point. I think that's a good way to describe it. And I thought about it in this way. If we're trying to do what's right all the time and our thoughts are good, right? And then he says, the house of the righteous will stand. Could it be a good name? Could it be your family name through generations is good? Could it be that we're all going to go to heaven? That's what we're going to stand, right? Because all the other wicked's going to go away. I think both apply, don't you? I think it encompasses, again, a choice. How do you have a good family name? We know how to do it immediately with mom, dad, children, but what happens in the great-grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-grandchildren? Do we have any control of that? We don't really. My great, I don't remember, 3 or 4 great-grandfathers was a horse thief in Ireland. Yeah, I know. So they said, you either leave the country or we're going to kill you tomorrow. We're going to hang you tomorrow. I'm very thankful he left the country. But do we all have some of that in our past? Maybe. I'd say we probably do. So how do we control that narrative? It goes back to the thoughts are righteous. All good thoughts, the righteous is right. You have to teach it, and then it comes back to the choice. It makes a full circle, right? Verse 8. A man will be commended according to his wisdom, but he who is a perverse heart will be despised. How do you commend someone? We think of it when our young people graduate from high school, college, universities, we commend them, right? What are we doing? Congratulating them. That's right, Lewis. We congratulate them. That a boy, that a girl, we pat them on the back, we give them a big hug, probably give them $50, right? It's a sign of, hey, this is the right thing. You're doing the right decisions. Is that not what Solomon is teaching? Hey, you keep up the good work. You study hard. You keep doing what God wants us to do. I commend you. Commend you for that. We set even maybe on a weekly basis, maybe not. Hey, you did a good job today. Jim, you did a good job leading singing. Thank you for the thought process. Thank you for the preparation. It's every day, right? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Dennis said that the word commend basically encompasses, hey, we appreciate what you've done, but it also is an encouragement to keep on going. To keep going. And that's what God does for us, right? He commends us and encourages us to keep going. But notice what he says. But he who is of a perverse heart will be despised. What does the word despised mean? Is it detest? Maybe we use the word hate. I absolutely hate something. Usually we say it with food, right, Jason? I don't normally. But what is despised? Is it not the wicked going to be destroyed? He's already told us. So now he's saying, you're going to be despised. Yeah, Dennis said it's like repugnant. Like it, we don't want anything to do with it, right? So, verse 9. Better is the one who is slighted, but has a servant, than he who honors himself, but lacks bread. How would we say that today? Does the word arrogance fit? I'm better than you type mentality? Is that what he's teaching? I think the first part is saying humility, and the second part is opposite of humility, whatever that looks like. 10 foot tall and bulletproof. You can't hurt me, You know somebody like that? I think we all do. So Solomon here is saying, I had everything. I had everything known to man, and it was all vanity. And he had wisdom from God. Is he comparing the two mindsets that he lived in this verse? I think he is. I think he's comparing it to teach us that we have the ability to choose to do what's right. Okay, well, I think we could quit this lesson right there. We could stop this Sunday school class right there, because that's the whole chapter of 12. Choose to do what's right. Choose it, and it's going to happen. It's going to be good for you. Any comments? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Lewis said that a good example of this is David versus Goliath. Small versus big. No matter how small you are, but if the desire's there and the right decisions is there, you can accomplish it. So if we're choosing the right thought process, and we get down to this verse, and it says, better is the one who is slighted, but he has a servant, than he who honors himself but lacks bread. Is he not teaching that we have to, every thought, we have to make it based on what God has taught us? It has to be, right? Because whatever's in here, it's either good or bad. It's nothing in between. You can't have both. So look at verse 11. He who tills his land will be satisfied with bread, but he who follows, there's that word I can't say, fertility is devoid of understanding. He is without understanding. He who tills the land will be satisfied. Are we satisfied today? I don't know. Should we be satisfied today? Now, wait a minute, Brian. You just said we got to grow and we got to learn more and we can't be the same. And if we stay this, we're never the same. We're either getting better or we're getting worse. Right? So how do we become satisfied if we always are thirsting for the knowledge? Or how do we become satisfied if we're working for our righteousness to carry on? What does the word satisfied mean? I struggled with this one just a little bit. To be honest with you, I struggle with this one. Content. That's a better word. Jerry said content. Content or pleased. So we have to be in the thought process that if we till the ground and we get enough to survive, we should be satisfied, right? If we till the ground and we get an abundance, we need to go back up into the earlier part of the chapter and start giving it away and take care of the people. That's a physical example of what he was trying to teach, right? Could it be saying not to be greedy? That's what Jerry said, content. Don't be greedy. Just be satisfied. Be happy. Can you choose to be happy? We've talked about it before. Can you choose to be sad? Can you, all those we can. So right here, he is saying that. He is saying to be satisfied, but don't be void of that understanding, Okay, let's look at verse 15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes. I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see why that's a problem. Our vision's tainted, isn't it? Rose-tinted glasses. Well, the problem is when you start saying I and me instead of God said, that's where we get in trouble. Boy, that's a good question. She asked the question, do you think a fool knows he's a fool? I would. I'm sorry. At the time, he does understand, but he doesn't care. I heard an expression one time, and this may help us. A wise man changes his mind many times, but a fool never does. That, I think, is when he knows that he's a fool or if he doesn't. Some of it is selfish. Some of it is, I don't want to do it that way. I don't like it. But then the lack of understanding. But I think that's the difference, is when you want to know the difference. You know? Yes, sir.
In the world of big data, we call it short-term and long-term. The only way you can actually build a data set and make a decision is if you have long-term data. Back to what you were saying about if him or her is actually a fool, and it's people who make decisions off the short term instead of waiting for the long-term result. Very quick way to gauge the thing.
I agree with you. Victor said basically that it's a long-term decision-making process. The ones that make the decisions very quickly doesn't have all the information, and it could be a foolish decision. Gabe, you may have to help me. Larry tells us this statement. A bad decision is based off of lack of information more than poor judgment. Is that right? Have you heard him say that? Yeah. But the concept is what Victor's saying. The bad decision was because it was lack of information, not necessarily because it was bad judgment. That makes a lot of sense. Because that's what Solomon is trying to teach us here. Is we can make some bad decisions, but we have to have the correct information. But he who heeds counsel is wise. True thoughts, true counsel that wants the instruction, just like Proverbs 1:7 says, we as trying to do what God says to do, we should want instruction. We should want that counsel. We should crave somebody or God, more importantly, saying, Brian, you need to change, and here's how you need to change. And then we say, yes, and then we try to change. That's what chapter 12 is trying to teach, and he put it in a very simple way, but he who heeds counsel is wise. Verse 16, a fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers shame. Here's another confession. I struggled with verse 16. How does a prudent man cover shame? How do you do that? And how is the foolish or the wicked known at once? Well, I thought about it and I read some things on it. And the point is, it goes back to the fruits of the Spirit. When you are, in Galatians 5, it runs through the list of the fruits of the Spirit. And one of them is what? Patience, right? I think verse 16 is teaching us that we don't overreact. I'm learning, Maddie. We don't hastily say something. We think about it. We maybe taste the words before they come out. We change the thought process to slow down just a little bit. Am I on the right track? Because I really struggle with that. How does a prudent man cover up shame? Well, it has to be some thought process of what Jesus did when he was ridiculed and when he was made fun of. He was spat upon, and what did he do? He died for our sins, right? Is that what Solomon is teaching? Yes. Yes, absolutely, Russell says.
and allow these past shames. And so often, shame, like, shame is on us that we cause the shame. We need to do what is required to reconcile that and then move forward with that person as best we can.
Right.
But if the shame is coming from somebody else, sometimes we just don't talk about it because it's not necessary. And willing to forgive, be willing to reconcile, move on with our Christian walk without allowing that to become a festering wound for us.
Right.
I think that's what Solomon is advising. That's certainly what Jesus did.
Exactly. Russell said, basically, to summarize it, that we need to do what Jesus did, and that's what Solomon is teaching, is to go on with our steadfastness, to go on with our Christian life. And if the shame is on us, we need to change it, but if it's on somebody else, we need to do the best we can to go ahead and walk in our Christian life. 2 verses real quick, if you write in your Bible, if you're taking notes, that help me with this passage is 1 Peter chapter 2 and 1 Peter chapter 3. It talks about Jesus and what he did and judging and the unfair judgment. In conclusion of chapter 12, verse 24, the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy man will be put to forced labor. If you're diligent, you're going to work. But the lazy man, he will do it only after being forced. Thank you very much for your attention, your comments. Good Lord willing, first Sunday in October, we'll start again in chapter 13 of Proverbs, and then we'll finish it. Thank you.